Alrighty, welcome back everybody to my channel, and we're in another edition of news for people who hate the news. And like every week, this week has had its fair share of news. So let's get into that. So I'm sure if you've been paying attention to anything at all, you're aware that tensions between Israel and its surrounding neighbors are getting a little higher. Um, Recently, Iran launched a bunch of drones and rockets at Israel. Most of them, I believe, were intercepted by the Iron Dome. A couple got through. But Israel vowed they were going to strike back against Iran, and they sure did on the night of April 18th, 2024. This has a lot of people concerned that tensions could escalate further and get everybody into a World War III. I'm sure that has been trending on Twitter, X, whatever, for a couple days now. I haven't checked, but I'm not sure. For those that don't know, Russia has said that they will side with Iran on this one, and we all know that the United States will most definitely have Israel's back, even though Joe Biden said that we're not going to intervene. But you know, that's what politicians always say. Oh, we're not going to get involved at this time, and then sure enough, we do. So we'll see how that goes. But speaking of Israel and Palestine, pro-Palestinian protesters blocked several bridges across the country on Monday in protest against Israel, I guess. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose was, except to just be a pain in the ass to people. I don't know. I don't get the whole blocking roads thing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, other than to cause an inconvenience for other people. Now, what should be more concerning to people, that's not as much of an inconvenience. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, apparently let a guy into the country that was detained twice in the past because he was listed as an Islamic terrorist. And they just let him through without any kind of, monitoring or parole or anything like that. So that's good to know that our law enforcement are just letting people in that, want to blow themselves up for the glory of Allah or whatever. Too bad they weren't the National Guard, because the National Guard apparently isn't playing that anymore. Because a National Guardsman shot a criminal alien who was attempting to stab two people, who then fled back into Mexico. Good for this National Guardsman. That's the exact response that anybody should have when somebody is attempting to stab people. And I'm not sure what happened to the guy that was shot, but, you try and stab people, that's what you're going to get. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I don't feel any remorse for that individual at all. Kind of reminds me of the Daniel Penny case up in New York. The dude on the subway, he's a Marine, and a crazy dude on the subway was threatening to stab people, and the Marine said no, but New York is run by a bunch of clowns, so the guy that kept somebody from stabbing people was the one put in prison. That wasn't in my notes for today, but just want to keep everybody aware of that. Apparently Dubai has had a lot of flooding lately because of cloud seeding that was going on there, which caused massive amounts of rain and flooding to happen. I guess it's now out of the bag that countries, governments can manipulate weather like that. But I think back to the old Jurassic Park movie, and I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but you probably know where I'm going with this, where I think it was Jeff Goldblum's character said, while we always asked the question whether or not we could, we never stop to ask whether or not we should. And I think that applies here as well. And I get the movie was a fictitious movie, but the principle applies here, because we have seen in the past what happens when man tries to play God, and it never ends well, you know? So maybe we shouldn't be doing that in this regard either. California apparently is trying to establish a genealogy office to keep track of people who could possibly be paid reparations from slavery in the United States. This sounds an awful lot like what Nazi Germany did by trying to keep track of people who had, quote unquote, one drop of Jew blood in them, end quote. Because it starts off sounding like a good idea. People who, were affected by slavery should be compensated in some way, but then you're giving over, incredibly personal information about yourself to the government. And again, things like that never end well, because they have your DNA, they have your ancestry, they have incredibly detailed information about you. So then if you come out and say, hey, maybe the government shouldn't do this, that, or the other, and then they say, oh, well, you don't get paid anymore. So I don't like the idea of this. Plus, it could backfire in some way, because if you trace the genealogy back, there could be, two people who were enslaved, who had children that eventually became free, and then intermarried and had children with people who were not African Americans, who would then end up getting paid reparations because their great 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 grandmother was a slave, even though they themselves, look like me. They're white and they look like me. So like this could very easily backfire and cause even more of a problem than what the government wants to do. But this is California we're talking about, and they are also ran by a bunch of clowns. Oh, man. Pardon me, my nose is really itchy today. Speaking of a complete clown show, the case in New York against Donald Trump for his business fraud or hush money payment, or what, I don't even remember what the case is about at this point, and it's probably by design, but his case in New York is an absolute clown show. People who have been vocally anti-Trump in the past are allowed to be on the jury. Several jurors were already dismissed. One guy was dismissed because he lied about having any kind of criminal record in the past, because he did some anti-conservative vandalism or something. And another lady was dismissed because her friends and family figured out she was on the trial. So the jury selection has been an absolute clown show. And Judge Juan Merchan has also stated that Trump must show up to trial every day that the trial goes on, or he will be thrown in jail. No exceptions. So Trump could potentially miss his son Barron's high school graduation, which is something that they've looked forward to for many years now, as any parent does with their children. And Trump was very vocal about it on Truth Social, by the way, to no surprise. But even bigger for the country, Trump has to make a decision whether he will show up to the New York trial or to the Supreme Court oral arguments this coming week for his presidential immunity case. Now, I was listening to Timcast IRL the other day, and Tim Pool made a good point that Juan Merchan apparently thinks he's God or something, and needs a bit of a reality check. So what Trump should do is go to the Supreme Court oral arguments and force New York to try to come after him. Call their bluff a little bit and see what happens. Because the business fraud case, I guess, I don't even know the full details, but apparently he fudged some documents or something, and that they're trying to say it was felonious because he's covering up another crime or so. I don't even remember. This is all literally election interference, to keep Donald Trump from trying to run for president this year. That's all it is, plain and simple. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. What's also interesting is that we had another self-immolation, except this time it was in the U.S., right outside of Trump Tower in protest of Donald Trump. A dude lit himself on fire. What he was trying to protest for or against or whatever is unclear to me at this time. And honestly, I don't care. I really don't. If you are that brainwashed into thinking that Donald Trump is a fascist and he's going to be a dictator and blah, 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 and you do something like that, then have fun, dude. I don't care. What I do care about is big tech collusion with the government to keep people from hearing anti-government type views, because YouTube has removed several episodes of Timcast IRL that were several years old simply because they're trying to retroactively enforce policies that weren't a thing back then. So the episodes that were removed, they hosted controversial guests like Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, and more. When Tim Pool asked them like what exact policies they violated, they never got a straight answer. This is a clear demonstration that big tech corporations are in bed with the government to silence people who go against the government narrative. Plain and simple. Because these policies weren't a thing back then, but all of a sudden now it's a problem. What these companies are doing is literally memory holing things like in the book 1984. That was the main character's job, was to essentially erase history and make it as if it never happened. And that's exactly what these big tech companies are doing. So that's why I appreciate Rumble and, for the most part, X, for allowing people to speak their mind. X is, has its problems with censoring people in countries like Turkey and China and other places like that. But for America, it's pretty decent with expressing your own opinions. But this is not good for people who want to call out, BS stuff. And we see this in other companies as well, like NPR. In my last video I did like this, I mentioned that NPR had like 87 registered Democrats working for them and 0 Republicans. And now we're seeing even more of this kind of stuff because a former employee there by the name of Yuri Berliner was fired for being a whistleblower about NPR's blatant left-wing bias and their DEI initiatives. To the point where, like, when it was blatantly clear they were wrong about something, they never would admit it. They just kind of quietly brushed it off into the background as if it never happened and just moved on. Things like the Hunter Biden laptop story, for example. And their new CEO, who has only been there for not even a month now at the time of me recording this, her name is Catherine Mayer, and I want you all to remember that, because she came out and said that the First Amendment is a problem in controlling disinformation. So now you have a government-funded media apparatus that says that the First Amendment to our Constitution is a problem. These people want complete control of your life and will do anything they can to get it. So do not forget her name, and let's not forget that the government was trying to set up a Department of Misinformation a while back, with Jen Psaki calling out, big companies like Spotify, that she said, meaning Spotify, but she said Spotify, have a duty to, control misinformation on their platforms, blah, 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 blah. So they tried to set up the Department of, Disinformation to keep people from calling out, government corruption and other stuff like that. So don't let these people go without being shamed for this kind of stuff, because that is absolutely shameful. And that's literally what the First Amendment is supposed to be about: calling out the egregious actions of the government, so that way we may remain free. But to end on some good news here, apparently a mass shooting was stopped in Maryland before it ever happened, because I believe local law enforcement or the FBI detained this person before they could ever do any harm. The would-be shooter was apparently a transgender individual, and apparently wanted to be famous. Again, like I said before, I'm shocked that law enforcement and the FBI actually stopped another mass shooting instead of facilitating one. Because every time something like that happened, the FBI would always come out and say, "Oh, this person was on our radar, but blah 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 blah." So, I'm surprised that they actually did something beforehand this time. So, that's all I've got for news. But like last time, I've got some conspiracy theories to talk about, and we're breaking out the tinfoil top hat again. So, in regards to the Palestinian protesters, it definitely seemed like it was a very well-coordinated effort, because they all blocked bridges on the same day across the nation. Who are they paid for, or who are they paid by? I'm not entirely sure. This time it may be Iranian interests that are paying for these protests to happen, but more likely world elites who want to have like a world governing body are organizing this stuff to cause the American life to crumble as we know it. I'm now looking back a couple months ago, and the head director of the FBI came out and said that it is not a matter of if, but when another terrorist attack will happen. And so, thinking back on that, it is no surprise to me that ICE let a guy through who was a listed Islamic terrorist, because they want a terrorist attack to happen. The incompetence with our federal government agencies is deliberate incompetence, and they want something like this to happen, probably to interfere with the election this year, causing people to be scared to go out to the polls, or, to cause so much chaos that we have to put an election on pause altogether. It would not surprise me if something like that tries to happen at this point. Now, like I said, all these are conspiracy theories. There is no truth to any of this stuff. It is just my own thoughts of like, why is this stuff happening? Hence the tinfoil top hat. This isn't so much of a conspiracy theory, because we had things like the Twitter files come out a long time ago. But big tech companies like YouTube and Facebook and other companies like that don't want influential people like the Tim Pools, the Jimmy Dores, the Alex Joneses of the world to interfere with what the government is doing by trying to silence people, shadow ban people, and keep people from speaking out against the narrative that the government wants out there. Because they want people to be, good little brainwashed tools to do the government's bidding, and anything that anybody says that's against, whatever the government says is a fascist, is a Nazi, is every kind of ist and phobe you can think of. Again, these companies and the federal government want complete control over your life and will do anything they can to get it. So it is of the utmost importance that we speak out and call out this bull crap when it happens. And we have to keep doing it to let these people know they're not the ones in charge. We are. We, the people, are the ones in charge. That is how our governing system is supposed to work. Supposed to work. We elect people to represent us in our government, not rule us. They are not leaders, they are not rulers, they are representatives. And they've forgotten that. Mostly because too many Americans have just let it happen. But that's beside the point right now. And to finish up, with the FBI actually stopping a couple mass shootings lately, to me it seems like they might have hired a good PR person to try to help rehab their image. Because, like I said before, every time there's a mass shooting that's taking place, FBI people will come out and be like, oh, well, that person was on our radar. We were trying to keep an eye on them, but, they just got away from us or whatever. So the FBI has had a bit of a damage to the reputation, and this seems like they may be trying to rehab their image a little bit to be like, hey, guys, we're actually pretty good at our jobs now and whatever. But let's not forget that, should they want to, they will come to you and take you away. Or, at the very worst, they will burn down your living quarters with you and other people inside it. I'm recording this on April 21st, and just a couple days ago was the anniversary of the tragic death and the burning down of the Branch Davidian compound down in Waco, Texas. Now, I'm not defending David Koresh if he was doing illegal stuff, to kids that were there. He should have been arrested. The FBI could have absolutely detained him outside of his compound because it was known that he would go, for a run outside the compound and stuff every single day. So they could have arrested him and not, killed 80-something people, innocent women and children, along with David Koresh. So let's never forget that the FBI will absolutely do some heinous shit like that just because they want to flex their power. So, I know it's a bit of a downer to end on there, but I hope that I was able to inform you of something new this week that you maybe not didn't hear about. And if you want to see some more content like this, let me know down in the comments section below. As always, share this with someone who needs to hear the news and who needs to be woken up from the liberal left-wing mind virus cult. So with that being said, I will see you all next time.